The transfer orders arrived at 3:12 station time, stamped with Priority Gamma and sealed with the insignia of the United Planetary Directorate. Commander Adrian Vale was awake when the notification chimed. He was usually awake. Sleep had become a thin, fragile thing since the Procyon conflict, since the day he watched the cruiser Vanguard's light tear open under a plasma barrage and listened to the screams of good people fade into static. Officially, he had been commended for strategic brilliance under fire. Unofficially, he had been removed from frontline command. Reassignment, they'd called it. Adrian read the message twice. Assignment: Research Liaison Officer. Location: Kepler Relay Station K-47. Sector: Perseus Reach, Outer Rim. Objective: Intercultural Integration Oversight. Duration: Indefinite. Kepler K-47. He frowned. That wasn't a military installation. It was a joint scientific and diplomatic outpost operated primarily by non-human species within the galactic concord. In simpler terms, aliens. He leaned back in his chair and stared at the viewport of his Earth orbit apartment. The planet glowed blue and indifferent beneath the darkness. He'd spent 15 years defending humanity's place in the stars. Now they were sending him to babysit scientists at the far edge of mapped space. Intercultural integration oversight, he muttered. That's bureaucrat for make sure the humans don't embarrass themselves. He accepted the transfer. What else was there to do? The shuttle to K-47 departed from Lunar Docking Ring 12 3 days later. Adrian packed lightly. Uniforms, a few personal effects, a framed photo of his old crew he wasn't sure why he kept. The transport vessel, long stride, carried cargo, research personnel, and diplomatic envoys. Adrian was the only military officer aboard. He felt it in the way conversations dipped when he passed. Scientists were brilliant, but they had little patience for soldiers. As Earth shrank into a pale sphere, he reviewed what little information he'd been given about the station. Kepler Relay K-47 orbited a dim K-type star in the Perseus Reach. It functioned as a communications hub and cultural exchange center between humanity and several Concord species. The majority population aboard the station consisted of the Varelians, an advanced, technologically adept species known for curiosity bordering on obsession. There was a note in the file that caught his attention. Human presence at K-47 has been minimal due to environmental adaptation complexities. Commander Vale will serve as primary human representative until further notice. Minimal human presence. He exhaled slowly. So, he wouldn't just be the liaison. He would be the only human there. The journey took 6 weeks through a network of jump corridors. Adrian kept to himself, exercising in low gravity, reading station schematics, memorizing Varelian cultural protocols. The Varelians were described as highly social, information-driven, and intensely inquisitive. They valued knowledge acquisition almost as much as survival. There was also an addendum under behavioral notes. Varelians may exhibit prolonged observational behavior toward unfamiliar species. This should not be interpreted as hostility. He snorted quietly. Prolonged observational behavior. They were telling him he was going to be stared at. Wonderful. Kepler Relay Station K-47 came into view like a jeweled spider suspended in space. It wasn't built in the blocky, armored style of human stations. Instead, it sprawled outward in elegant arcs and radial spines, glowing faintly violet against the darkness. Massive translucent panels pulsed with internal light, as though the structure itself breathed. Adrian stood at the viewport as the long stride approached docking alignment. "Beautiful," whispered one of the civilian researchers nearby. He had to admit it was an alien. The docking umbilical extended like a delicate limb, connecting with the transport in near silence. No clang of metal, no mechanical shudder, just a soft hum. "Welcome to Kepler Relay K-47, the ship's AI intoned. Adrian adjusted his uniform jacket. The quiet transfer had begun. He had no idea how loud it would become. Middle, under observation. The first thing Adrian noticed when he stepped into the station was the light. It wasn't harsh or sterile. It shimmered gently along curved walls of pale, organic-looking material. The corridors arched high overhead, supported by rib-like structures that seemed grown rather than assembled. The second thing he noticed was the silence. And then, eyes. Dozens of them. The Varelians gathered at the far end of the docking hall were taller than humans by a head, slender but not fragile. Their skin shimmered in hues that shifted subtly with movement, lavender to silver to deep cobalt. Their large, reflective eyes were framed by delicate ridges that caught the light. They wore fitted garments woven with threads that glowed faintly in geometric patterns. Every single one of them was staring at him. Not with aggression, with fascination. Adrian stopped 3 paces inside the hall. A Varelian stepped forward. Her skin shimmered pale turquoise. "Commander Adrian Vale," she said in fluent but slightly melodic standard. "Welcome to K-47. I am Coordinator Laius." Her voice had a harmonic undertone, as though layered with distant echoes. "Coordinator," Adrian nodded. Laius tilted her head, studying him openly. "You are taller than the average human male listed in our biological archive. And you're more direct than the average diplomat I've met." A ripple of color passed across her skin, violet, quick and bright. "Observation is considered respectful among my people," she said. "I'll keep that in mind." Behind her, the other Varelians leaned subtly forward. He realized something unsettling. They weren't just observing. They were analyzing. Micro-movements of his hands, the rhythm of his breathing, the way his pupils adjusted to light. He was data. Laius gestured gracefully. "Your quarters have been prepared. Environmental parameters adjusted to Earth standard comfort." "Thank you." As they walked, Adrian became acutely aware that several Varelians followed at a polite but undeniable distance. "Is there an issue?" he asked quietly. Laius's eyes flicked to the group behind them. "No issue. Curiosity." "About what?" "You." He almost laughed. "I'm not that interesting." A pause. "You are the only human within 14 light years." That shut him up. The station's design emphasized openness. There were no sharp corridors, no hidden alcoves. Observation balconies overlooked communal areas. Transparent panels revealed laboratories filled with luminous equipment. Everywhere Adrian went, he felt watched. Not maliciously, but intensely. In the research wing, 3 Varelian scientists interrupted their work to circle him. Not too close, but close enough to examine the texture of his uniform fabric. "Does your species require external armor for thermal regulation?" one asked. "It's just clothing," Adrian replied. They exchanged quick flickers of color. Fascinating. In the nutrition sector, a group asked to observe him eating. He declined. They asked again more politely. He compromised by explaining human digestion in clinical terms. They recorded every word. By the 3rd day, he understood something critical. To them, he wasn't merely a representative. He was a living anomaly. Human Varelian contact had been limited to digital exchanges and rare diplomatic summits on neutral planets. No human had lived long-term within a Varelian majority station. Until now. It might have remained manageable if not for the shift change incident. Adrian had just finished reviewing cross-species research agreements when he entered the central atrium, a vast circular chamber where soft light cascaded down from a domed ceiling. He froze. At least 30 Varelians stood in the atrium, all facing him. Laius stood at the center. "Commander Vale," she said serenely, "we request your participation in a cultural exchange exercise." He crossed his arms, "which involves observing you in a relaxed state." He blinked. "In a what state?" "Relaxed." "Informal. We have studied human military posture and have concluded it is not your natural resting behavior." A few Varelians leaned closer, eyes wide. "You want to see me relax?" "Yes." He looked around the circle. Every gaze was fixed on him with undisguised interest. The quiet transfer had officially ended. Against his better judgment, Adrian agreed, on conditions. "No physical contact," he said firmly, "and this stays professional." Laius inclined her head. "Agreed." He removed his jacket and sat on one of the curved seating platforms. He loosened his collar. He forced his shoulders to drop, forced himself to breathe slowly. The Varelians murmured softly, skin flickering in coordinated pulses as they recorded data. His muscle tension decreases by approximately 17%, one observed. "Cardiac rhythm stabilizing," another added. Laius stepped closer, but not too close. "Commander," she asked gently, "what occupies your thoughts when you are not performing duty?" He hesitated. "My crew." Her skin shifted to a muted blue. "They are no longer living." It wasn't a question. "No." A hush settled over the atrium. To his surprise, several Varelians' coloration dimmed in what he recognized as empathy. "We did not anticipate the depth of emotional retention," Laius said quietly. "Our data on human grief is incomplete." Adrian looked up at her. "You're studying that too?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because understanding it may prevent it." That stopped him. For the first time since arrival, he didn't feel like a specimen. He felt heard. Over the following weeks, something shifted. The staring didn't stop, but it changed. Less clinical, more personal. Varelians began asking him about Earth's oceans, about human art, about laughter. They shared their own cultural constructs in return, complex harmonic music that vibrated through bone, communal memory rituals where individuals synchronized neural patterns to relive historical events. Adrian found himself spending increasing time with Laius. She was older than most on the station, though age in Varelian terms did not align neatly with human years. Her curiosity was sharp, but her demeanor was measured. "You feel isolated," she observed one evening as they stood near a viewport overlooking the star. "I'm fine. You say that often." "It appears statistically unlikely." He smirked despite himself. "Do you analyze everything?" "Yes." "Must be exhausting." "On the contrary, it is invigorating." A pause stretched between them. "Does it bother you?" she asked. "Our attention?" "Sometimes." "Why?" "Because I don't know if you see me or just humanity." Her skin shimmered slowly, from violet to soft silver. "We see both." The real trouble began when an internal Varelian network log was leaked to the wider Concord. Adrian wasn't meant to see it, but someone, perhaps Laius, perhaps not, forwarded it anonymously to his terminal. The transcript detailed extensive physiological analyses of him, metabolic rates, hormonal fluctuations, neural response patterns, and appended to the end, a proposal. Recommend extended proximity studies. Human male subject exhibits unique adaptive responses under social stimulus. Potential insight into cross-species bonding behaviors. Bonding behaviors. He exhaled sharply. He wasn't just a curiosity. He was an experiment. He confronted Laius in her office. "You're studying me without consent." Her skin darkened, a sign he had learned meant concern. All data collection has adhered to non-invasive standards. That's not the point. What is the point? The point is I'm not a research animal. Silence hung heavy between them. Commander, she said carefully, our species does not differentiate between observation and respect. To study is to value. That's not how humans work. Then teach us. He hesitated. Her gaze did not waver. You are correct, she added softly. We have been overly curious. The admission startled him. I don't mind questions, he said finally. But I need boundaries. Define them.
He did.
Private quarters off limits, without invitation. No biometric tracking without explicit consent. No proximity studies disguised as cultural exchange. Laius agreed to every term. The following day, a station-wide directive formalized new protocols. The staring lessened. Not gone, but tempered. And something else took its place. Interest that felt individual. Climax. Not so quiet. The external crisis arrived without warning. A rogue asteroid cluster, destabilized by stellar flare activity, shifted trajectory toward K-47's orbit. Early projections suggested minimal risk. They were wrong. One of the larger fragments altered course unpredictably, pulled by gravitational eddies from the station's own mass. Collision in 8 hours. K-47 had defensive systems, but they were calibrated for debris, not multi-kilometer fragments. Evacuation was impossible. The nearest jump corridor was 12 hours away. For the first time since Adrian's arrival, the Varelians looked uncertain. Not afraid, but unpracticed in imminent catastrophe. Your species has significant experience with crisis response, Laius said as alarms pulsed softly through the station. That's one way to put it. He stepped into command mode without hesitation. Pull up structural schematics. Reroute power to shield generators. We're going to need focused deflection. Varelians moved instantly, their coordination breathtaking. Adrian barked orders, clear, concise. Adjusting vectors. Calculating impact angles. Directing reinforcement teams. The station trembled as the first fragments struck peripheral spines. Lights flickered. Shields at 60%, someone called. The main fragment loomed on the forward display, a mountain of rock and ice spinning slowly. We can't absorb that, Laius said quietly. No, Adrian agreed. But we can redirect it. He outlined a plan. Overcharge the port-side gravity well projectors, create a temporary mass distortion, nudge the asteroid's trajectory just enough to miss the core.
Risky. Possibly catastrophic.
But the only option. Do it, Laius ordered. Energy surged through the station. The hum deepened to a bone-rattling vibration. Adrian stood at the central console, hands flying across unfamiliar controls he'd mastered in weeks of study.
Now.
The gravity projectors flared. Space warped subtly around the station. The asteroid's path shifted. Barely. But enough. It scraped past K-47, tearing away an outer array, but sparing the central habitat. Silence followed. Then, a wave of color rippled across every Varelian in the chamber. Relief. Laius turned to him. You have saved us. He shook his head. We saved each other. Ending. No longer alone. Repairs took months. The crisis changed everything. The Varelians no longer looked at him as an anomaly to be studied. They looked at him as a leader, as one of them. A formal Concord delegation arrived to commend K-47's response. Adrian was cited by name. Commander Vale, the envoy said, your transfer was described as routine. He almost laughed. It wasn't. Laius stood beside him. You are no longer the only human within 14 light years, she said quietly. He frowned. What? She gestured toward the docking ring. A human transport vessel glided into view. Reinforcements. Researchers. Diplomats. Engineers. Human presence expanding. You requested additional representation weeks ago, she reminded him. We approved it. He stared at the ship. The quiet transfer that wasn't quiet at all had become something else entirely. A beginning. He looked at Lias. You're still going to stare at us, aren't you? Her skin shimmered bright violet, amusement. Yes. He smiled for the first time in a long while without forcing it. Then, I guess we'll just have to get used to each other. Outside, the repaired arms of K-47 glowed softly against the stars. No longer just a Varelian station. Not quite human. Something shared. And for the first time since Procyon, Commander Adrian Vale felt the weight of isolation lift. The transfer hadn't been quiet. It had been transformative. And the stars, vast and indifferent, seemed just a little more welcoming than before.